The focus of this presentation is going to be how to effectively work with wide data. So before I forget, so I'm not really going to demo this today, but you should use Workflow Builder to help you make what you do repeatable. So you can just go File, New, Workflow, and then you hit Record here, and it's going to record the steps. So it's actually going to write the script for you. And when you're manipulating data tables, if you're doing certain steps over and over, this can be really helpful. So again, I'm not really going to cover this in detail, but I do want to point out that if you're manipulating data, Workflow Builder is a really, really helpful tool to be able to turn it on, capture what you're doing in a repeatable way. Okay, but let's get going. And the first thing we need to do is organize our columns. We need to see what's in the data set. We're going to look at column manager. We need to group columns, and then we're going to have to change some column properties. All right, so let's look at this first item. All right, so if you have jump 18, there's this little tool here, and it's a shortcut for column manager. And you just click it, and column manager just comes right up. And what it does is it has all of your columns, but then it's also has statistics. It has some property columns. I can make this a little smaller if I don't want all those statistics. And then it also has this nice little histogram. Right? And just to remind people, what are we working with here? So I didn't pick like extra super crazy wide data, but I have 131 columns and 1,455 rows. Right. Not only does Column Manager give you this overview and it shows you what kind of column properties you have, it's a selection tool. So I can start selecting my columns. Got to figure out where to put things so you can see this. There, you can see it kind of go on in the back. Right? So this is a nice way to work with columns and find columns. One of the things that I will do in Columns Manager is look for where there's missing data. Okay. And these columns have all of the data missing. There's nothing in them, right? So I know how many rows I have. That's how many missing values I have. This is not going to be interesting to analyze. So what I am actually selecting those columns over here, right? And what I could do is come back over to this here in the columns panel. So here is a columns menu. This is the columns menu. And then there's always an abbreviated menu if you just right click. So I usually right click, and then I'm going to group. Oh, I think I missed. Nope. Yeah, like you have to select the columns, and then you can group columns. And it went here. And so these are all missing is my group, and my typing's not great. And then while you're over here, you can also drag and drop things. So to get these into a different place, I'll just pull them up towards the top so you can see it here. And you can see my columns are right there. And one of the other things that you're going to want to do, because deleting data is dangerous, what we can do is we can hide and exclude our columns. Similar to data points, but here we do want different control. So I'm going to hide them from the data table because they're just not helping. And you can see that they have disappeared and we have the little mask symbol there. Right? And then this is also going to let me not have to visually look at them. While I'm over here, I'm going to do some more collection of columns. Like this is a really nice way to start to organize your data. So maybe you also want to be able to lock your columns. So I'm going to scroll lock these first columns here. And then as I scroll across my data, they're just right there. So I think this is something that people sometimes want to do, and you get this visual, they don't have to be selected, but they're always going to be there. And then they're also going to be there in launch dialogues as well. So let me unscroll lock these. Right. And before we leave this part, let me just select my A's here, columns that start with A. And let me come down and I'm going to group these. And I'm going to select my B's and I'm going to group those. And here's what I want to show you is that, so remember, all we did is hide these from the data table. So, and then I'm going to open A's and leave the B's closed. And now when we do any type of analysis, I'm just going to go to distribution to keep it simple. Whether it's open or closed is respected. So here, all missing. So they're still there for my analysis. It doesn't make any sense, but they're there because they're missing, but it's not on the data table. And you can do, if I don't want them to show up here, I could also exclude them and then they wouldn't be there. But we're going to want them later when we look at missing data. But the A's, so my grouping, I can just select all of my A's or all of my B's now. And how I leave it, whether it's open or closed with that gray triangle over on the data table, is respected in the launch dialogues. So if I want my B's, I just pop them in there, even though I don't look at them. And I can do the same thing with my A's, right? So, and also with wide data, don't forget, whenever you have a launch dialogue, there's a tool here and you can always filter on your columns. So I can sort by name, right? So descending, if I want everything that starts with a V, it's just gonna, or if it contains a V, there's some text, some different text things that you can do here. And I have to remind myself in the documentation, which is a good place to remind you in launch dialogues, there's a help button here. Oh, and then if you're like, ooh, I don't know, just reset it, and then it will go back to looking like it was. So group your columns. It's very effective. And then you can also control what you see. And it's just so helpful when you work with big data, because I watch people work with JMP and they scroll. So it's pretty hard. But let's back up for a minute because we talked about column manager, right? And so under the columns menu, we can get to column manager, right? And likewise, our open and close are right here. So it works in column manager as well. So just because you have groups doesn't mean it won't work. If you don't have column manager because you have an older version of JMP, we have what's called column viewer. And the column viewer works a little bit differently in that you have to select the columns that you want, right? And then show the summary and scroll down, but it works the same way. It's still a way to interact with the columns. And this is so much better than just hunting and picking and try to find what you want. And again, we can sort by things like the number of missing or these other ones, because this is an older style table, you're going to right click and sort by your columns. So here we'll sort by the number missing, and we get the same kind of thing. Standardized attributes is a way, so hopefully you're not brand new to JMP. If you are, you go to column info, and your attributes are things like your data type, your modeling type, formatting, etc. So one of the things you can see here is my lot ID is continuous. Right? And so I have these three variables, and I want my lot, I want to make sure my lot and my batch are categorical. So standardized attributes let you look at multiple columns. And you have to choose what you want to change. And here I want to change the data type. So I want them to be numeric. The modeling type, then, I want them to be nominal or ordinal. I'm going to pick ordinal because they're numbers and there's an order order implied, or nominal because it's meaningless, right? So in this case, my lot ID and batch number doesn't really have anything to do with this. So I say okay, and you can see it's changed it over here. But one of the uses of standardized attributes is people will bring data in, and for some reason, it's all character data. You can select all of your columns and change it back over to numeric and continuous or whatever you want. Ship month is a good idea for changing this to ordinal because JMP does recognize things like months, and there's an order implied there. So that's a little bit of standardized attributes and column views and column managers.